Good evening. You're watching Left, Right and Centre. I'm Nidhi Razdan. Tonight, a division bench of the High Court in Nainital has put off Uttarakhand's trust vote till next week, asking why the hurry to impose President's rule as the Attorney General argues against a floor test. Has the crisis only deepened in the state today? Also tonight, ahead of India's big semi-final match tomorrow, the AIB's Tanmay Bhatt joins us as we wish the team all the very best for tomorrow's game. But first tonight, we're beginning with this news story coming in from Chhattisgarh. Tonight, 7 security personnel of the CRPF have been killed in a landmine blast near Dantewada, the explosion causing a 6-foot wide crater on the road. It is clearly, as you can see from the pictures, a massive blast. Reports also suggesting that the Jawans were unarmed at the time that this explosion happened. It happened as their convoy was passing by on the road. My colleague Srinivasan Jain is currently travelling in Chhattisgarh and joins us now from near Raipur. Vasu, what are the details of this? It appears to have been quite a big attack.
It is a big attack, Nidhi, and it comes after a prolonged lull where we've not seen this kind of upsurge of Naxal violence for a long time. In fact, it's been the state government, the police force, which has been on the up as part of what they call Mission 2016 to eliminate Naxalism, they claim, from Bastar in the course of this year. But now it appears that the Naxals are trying to indicate that they're not down and out, and hence this fairly major attack, as you mentioned, a massive crater that targeted this CRPF truck as these Jawans were returning. 5 of them were returning from leave. 2 of them were returning from vegetables, so they were all in civilian uniforms. They were not carrying weapons, so this was not an armed patrol that was on the move, which is also why perhaps they were not traveling in an armored vehicle. They were traveling in an ordinary Tata truck, which was flung several feet into the air, and tragically all 7 Jawans lost their lives. It took the CRPF a while to actually identify them. Such was the force of this blast, but now all 7 have been identified very quickly. They are Constables D. Vijay-Raj, Pradeep Tirke, Narayan Das, Devendra Chaurasia, Ranjan Das, Nana Uday Singh and J. Rajendran. They were traveling along a fairly sensitive road. This is the Dantewada Sukhma road, which is a vital main road that links 2 Naxal-prone regions. And the fact that the Naxals could actually set off an IED of this magnitude in a road of this sensitivity and importance is going to be a cause for worry. The local police has rushed to the spot. There are patrolling operations also going on there, and this is now being taken up by the administration here at the highest level to ensure that there is no immediate repeat of an attack of this seriousness.
Right, well, Vasu, thanks a lot for joining us from near Raipur tonight. And in fact, as Srinivasan Jain was mentioning, the worry is that this has come after a significant gap, an attack of this magnitude happening in Chhattisgarh after a long time. Well, tomorrow's floor test in the Uttarakhand Assembly, ordered by a single judge of the High Court, has now been stayed by a division bench till the 7th of April. The order came after Attorney General Mukul Rohtgi strongly opposed yesterday's order, saying that courts cannot interfere with the presidential proclamation. He said, in fact, that if the trust vote goes ahead, it would create 2 governments. However, the court today asked why there was a hurry to impose President's rule in the first place, and that Article 356 should not be used for political reasons.
The Uttarakhand High Court in sleepy Nainital abuzz after becoming the centre of national attention, as the government's top lawyer came to argue the centre's case. Taking him head-on, one of the Congress's top lawyers. In the Uttarakhand battle over President's rule, the High Court has decided to defer the test of strength scheduled to take place at the Assembly on Thursday morning. It's given the centre till Monday to file an affidavit, including the Governor's report to the President, before taking up the case next Wednesday. In court, the centre had urged the 2-judge bench to suspend its Tuesday order, saying, if you allow a trust vote, there will be 2 governments. Uttarakhand is under central rule and therefore has no government, just an empty assembly building. The court asked what was the hurry to impose President's rule, to which the centre said there were allegations of horse trading, which is why it froze the assembly temporarily. The court then said it's their duty to ensure Article 356 is not used for political reasons, and that a floor test is the best way to ascertain a majority. The centre argued, why the hurry to hold the test on the 31st? Give us time to file an affidavit and suspend the order for 3 days. Finally, the court ruled that Thursday's floor test will be called off. The next hearing will be on the 6th of April.
For the moment, the gates of the Uttarakhand Assembly continue to remain firmly shut. Now, the trust vote has already been deferred 2 times. The first time around, when just a day before it was to be held, President's rule was imposed on the state. The second time by the High Court, which has now asked for all the reasons why President's rule had to be imposed. Both parties have agreed to defer the date till next week, as the High Court now gets ready for a final hearing on Wednesday.
उत्तराखंड में मुख्यमंत्री जी की भूमिका हाथ ट्रेडिंग करते हुए जिस तरीके से सामने आई, विधानसभा अध्यक्ष महोदय ने जिस तरीके से जल्दबाजी में निलंबित किया, वो अल्पमत को बहुमत में परिवर्तित करने की कोशिश कर रहे थे। कुल मिलाकर प्रजातंत्र का मजाक उड़ा रहे थे।
कांग्रेस शासित सरकारों के लिए जो एक अनिश्चय की तलवार उनकी गर्दन पर लटका दी गई थी, अब वो समाप्त हो गई है।
As the battle for Uttarakhand now rages on in the courts, it's thrown up serious constitutional questions with far-reaching ramifications. With Siddharth Pandey, Amitav Revi, NDTV.
Well, joining us on the program tonight, Pinky Anand, the Additional Solicitor General, is here with us in Delhi. Sudhanshu Trivedi, National Spokesperson of the BJP. Also with us, Senior Advocate of the Supreme Court, Sanjay Hegde, Neerja Chaudhary, Senior Editor, and from the Congress Party, Jaiveer Shergill, who's a lawyer and spokesperson for his party. Pinky Anand, to you first. This is a rather confusing situation for everyone who's following this story. Who is in charge in Uttarakhand right now? It's very clear from the High Court's order yesterday that President's rule wasn't set aside, and at the same time, a trust vote was ordered. How do you look at this from here? There are many legal experts who believe, though, that the court was well within its rights to also order a floor test.
Nidhi, there's no confusion actually. Today, the President is in control of Uttarakhand. President's rule has been imposed under Article 356 and the Assembly is in suspended animation. That is the bottom line. When the Assembly is in suspended animation, there cannot be any floor test because there is no Assembly for all purposes. And therefore, in fact, you find that the ordering by the single judge of the floor test is wholly inappropriate. You just can't do it because the Assembly doesn't exist as far as the action is concerned. That is possibly the reason why you find the appellate court has now stayed the floor test till 7th for a further hearing. So I think we need to get our fundamentals clear. It is nobody's case that a proclamation can or cannot be set aside at the ultimate analysis. If it has to be and it is found to be wrong. But in this kind of situation where the single judge said, the judge said in terms, I will not stay the proclamation, that means President's rule is valid. So then how in those circumstances could a floor test be conducted? A. B. Please see the following situation. If a floor test had been conducted in these situations, 9 MLAs vote kept aside, what kind of floor test is that? Is that a floor test of any kind which can sustain itself? Which way are the people going to vote? If it's supposed to be a democratic exercise, then it should have been done as a free and fair exercise of the floor test, which can't be in these circumstances. You can't decide whether the 9 people are voting finally or not voting. That is a part of the democratic exercise process.
And the questions that you have raised are the same questions, Sanjay Hegde. As a lawyer, I take this to you, that, how does one answer those questions? Because those are valid points. If there is President's rule, how do you have a trust vote? How does all of this play out?
See, the government continues. The government has to be distinguished. The state of Uttarakhand has to be distinguished from what happens within the Assembly. What the single judge seemed to have done was to say that we shall consider the validity of the presidential proclamation. I will not stay it, but in the meanwhile, let me see whether we can have a floor test so that certain issues need not be gone into. Well, that is one way of thinking. The division bench today seems to say, no, let's take the issue of the presidential proclamation head on. So therefore, it has expedited all the parties putting in their replies, and thereafter, after it decides whether the proclamation is valid or invalid, then consequences would follow. Both to my mind are equally valid ways of solving the problem. But I have a slight problem with this thing of using President's rule primarily to influence the situation or to change it to somebody's advantage or disadvantage. A week is a long time in politics. Once the Chief Minister is out of office, the state is under President's rule. members of the Legislative Assembly who are facing an election shortly will be reconsidering their options. I do not expect that even the government at the centre actually think that they can get this proclamation approved by Parliament. If it goes to Parliament, it will get knocked out in the Rajya Sabha.
Yeah.
So, but they have a 2-month breathing time, and irrespective of anything else, they seem to have gone ahead with it to maybe change the status quo.
Well, Sudhanshu Trivedi, there are also important observations from the High Court bench today, from the division bench, which asked what was the hurry to impose President's rule. The court, the judges also said that the floor test is the best test and it is the correct arena in which to settle this matter. They also said that when the governor had set a date for the floor test on the 28th, again, what was the hurry? And also that, it is their duty to ensure that Article 356 should not be used for political reasons. Has this actually been an acute embarrassment for the centre, Mr. Trivedi, in the last 2 days, from the single judge order yesterday to what the division bench is saying today?
No, Nidhi, we are totally in favor of neither misusing the Article 356 and neither running away from floor test. I would like to remind, this was the same type of things happening which happened in Arunachal Pradesh case. They were consistently running away from facing the house for 6 months. Then they got a similar type of short-term stay from single judge bench from Guwahati High Court. And then finally what happened? The decision was stayed, and when the floor test happened, the things became very clear. So is the case here, and I would like to point out 2 things were there which prompted the government to put a precedent rule on the political aspect. Number 1, if you are saying that the advance notice was given to Speaker that there should be a vote division on finance bill, but the Speaker didn't accept it. Okay. Then the Speaker said that the finance bill was passed by voice vote, and immediately after the voting is over, so-called voting is over, outside the premises, openly majority of MLAs are saying that we have opposed the bill. Then what was it? Was it not the mockery of democracy? And the Congress at the same time is moving the disqualification against those MLAs, 9 MLAs, that they have gone and met governor. So how it can be the 2 contradictory logic? If you are saying that 9 MLAs were rebel, then how the majority, you have passed the bill with majority? Or if you are saying that the bill is passed with majority, then how 9 MLAs were out? It was categorically saying that the Speaker was partition. And second thing was how horse trading, for the first time in the entire history, a CM is directly seen as involved in a horse trading. So both on the political and the moral
aspect. But what about what the High Court, what about what the division bench said today? Because everything you say is important, and I'll take that to the Congress party. But what about everything that the courts have said over the last 2 days, Mr. Trivedi?
Yes, of course. As far as the court, whatever is said, Pinky Anandji has explained it very categorically. There were so many things in that yesterday's decision, that how can a court say that the voting will be done in this manner? How can court put an observer in the assembly? Can you think that a parliament will say that on Supreme Court there will be an observer in the hearing of a bench? If it is not possible, there is a clear-cut demarcation of the authorities of the judiciary and of the legislature. So there were so many things, and we were having full faith in the judiciary, and that's why the government has got an stay.
Well, there are questions that the court asked today as well. But Javid, before I come to you and Neeraj, Sanjay wanted to come in on that, because I think there are questions being raised on the court order yesterday, and whether it's actually muddied the waters further and raised questions.
You see, the theory is that the legislature and the court operate in different fields altogether. But
in practice,
but what has happened is, after the anti-defection law, any action of the Speaker is appealable in the courts. After the Bommai judgment, any decision to impose President's rule is justiciable in the courts. So ultimately, courts are willy-nilly dragged in. One or the other party which is not satisfied with the decision of the centre or the Speaker is going to court. Now to say that that the courts have no business in the legislature, I think that day has long passed. You have to go on the footing that ultimately your decisions will be challenged in courts, and that you should be prepared for that. Here what seems to have happened is, oh, forget it, there is a Bommai judgment, we will see about it in God's good time. For the moment, we need to impose President's rule. we need to do it in a hurry, and that seems to be what happened.
I'll get back to Pinky Anand on that, but Jayaveer wanted to come in first for the first Congress reaction today.
Nidhi, I would like to first clarify what happened in the court today and why this hearing has been postponed. I think there is no doubt about the fact that the government crossed the legal Lakshman Rekha while imposing this president's rule. Today's hearing, today's order is merely a question of shifting of dates in an ongoing judicial process, and Congress is really hopeful of a positive outcome. What happened in the court today, and I wish what Mr. Sudhanshu Trivedi is saying or Ms. Pinky Anand is saying, that was actually argued in court today. The limited point, the time has been given because Centre wanted time to file an affidavit explaining the rationale, the reason why did they impose this president's
Which they're
rule.
doing on Monday.
The larger question still remains unanswered, the hurry and the rationale behind the rule. The government has failed to answer this question before the single judge and even before the division bench today. That is why the extension has been given, keeping in interest and serving natural justice to have the reply on record. And Nidhi, who's the arbiter? Okay, Congress versus BJP. Why isn't the court not asking Congress, Speaker did this, Speaker did that? Because in a president's rule, they know that is the last option which was exercised as the first option by the government. That is the violation of the Constitution of India. Now, coming to the floor test, I'm a bit befuddled. Sudhanshu ji, what is your allergy to the floor test? Have you lost faith in the democratic process, or you would just want to make an entry through these backdoor channels? And why is the governor's report not public till date? Now, this will be a unique case where we actually don't know whether the governor has recommended a breakdown of a constitutional machinery, which is a condition precedent for Article 356. Mr. Arun Jaitley is overriding the speaker, overriding governor's recommendation and being the judge.
You know, on this point on the governor's report, Neerja, I actually made this point a couple of days ago on the show saying that why don't we actually know? People should know what the governor's report says. There were not one but apparently 3 reports that the governor said, or 4 now you're saying. But we don't know, apart from what officials are leaking from the government, what it actually says.
You know, what is worrying about, I think we have a right to know, absolutely. What is worrying is that the explanation that was given was the sting operation, that the chief minister was seen to be luring MLAs, you know, offering them inducements. Now, if corruption is going to be equal to the breakdown of constitutional machinery, that no state in India is going to survive. That's point number 1. Now, Uttarakhand has raised very serious questions, Nidhi, about the role of the speaker, about the role of the central government. We don't know what the governor has said. And also now questions are being raised about what the court has done.
And the speaker's conduct is also being called into question.
Absolutely, you know, whether
what the speaker has also done with the disqualification of the MLAs has raised a question mark.
Yeah, no, if you have a finance bill, appropriation bill, and MLAs call for a division, that is a right they must be given, which was not done. If you, on what basis did the speaker disqualify 9? Then when you have the governor call for majority test, 24 hours before that, the central government moves in and says, you know, president's rule. And the only explanation we have is the sting.